Searching for music for your next video? Then you need to check out Artlist.
Dialpad is where work comes together. It gives us one beautiful workspace for team and customer communications. You can call, message, meet, and support customers from anywhere on any device. It has never been easier to stay connected. See for yourself at dialpad.com. Dialpad. Work beautifully.
Fiverr freelancers developed my app exactly as I envisioned. All I did was log on. I found freelancers. I picked the one that would fit my budget and the one that had great reviews. Join Fiverr today and get something going.
Dialpad is where work comes together.
Searching for music for your next video? Then you need to check out Artlist. With amazing
Okay. Okay. What is up? What's up? What's happening? Hi, thinking back on Sunday. Finally, we're at least on schedule this time. Definitely back. Definitely continuing our campaign of Dr. Claud Anderson's YouTube channel. Definitely drawn to a close here. I definitely got 4 videos from him I kind of want to cover. And we definitely going to be very shortly moving into the next chapter for this channel. This is more or less this old Claud Anderson covering is pretty much it's a workable introduction for this podcast, or the direction of this podcast, right? There'll be some very uncomfortable truths people are going to have to deal with in watching his stuff and absorbing this type of content. Definitely can see how it's difficult for some people to sit through this type of stuff and get some level of emotional stigma, a reaction of it. It is what it is. I mean, it's definitely can see how, it's unfortunate, but it's definitely how. It's definitely something we got to get through, So anyway, I want to say after these next few videos, most likely going in the next week. I want to take a look. I'm gonna take a pit stop at some Thomas Sowell's Sowell stuff. Just to give the other guys a chance. I got some comments. Seen other comments regarding people saying, "Hey, you check out Thomas Sowell, and see what he has to say about all of this stuff." Primarily blacks and economics and stuff like that. And like I said, I'm gonna give him a chance if it can hold up against what Dr. Anderson says. I'm open-minded. I believe everybody should be open-minded, no matter who you are. So from the judge of the people or the types of characters that have told me to watch this guy, it's safe to assume that we can kind of gather that he's against reparations. He may be even against a lot of the narrative that's been spun, that Democrats, Republicans, and others have been taking advantage of to take advantage of blacks and our feelings, right? A lot of people like to tackle rhetoric and spin narratives in order to garner our attention instead of giving us what we actually need, and that's resources. But whatever. So anyway, yeah, we're gonna kick this off. We're gonna get this going. You know. So. I guess I got.
Dialpad is where work comes together.
We got to come together, everybody.
Hello.
We got to come together, man. Again, this is Dr. If anybody knew this here, this is Dr. Claud Anderson. And he's been fighting. He's been the warrior that black folks have been needing since we've gotten here. And he's been doing a hell of a job, man. It's just I would say the only thing that's been going wrong is we ain't really been practicing it. We ain't been trying to enact the strategies that he's set out for us to. I mean, he wrote the playbook, man. He wrote the playbook for Black success in America, and it's rooted in history. It's rooted in awareness, self-awareness. You know, he's critical not just of our oppressors or our enemies or the elites. He's also oppressive. I mean, he's also critical of us, right? And that's important. Got to be in order for us to make change, right? In order for us to get anywhere, we're gonna have to have uncomfortable conversations with each other in-house in order to see positive change. So let's get the show on the road.
Welcome to Connecting the Dots on my YouTube channel. I'm Dr. Claud Anderson, your host. Here again, they bring some facts to you and somehow explain a lot of the issues that pertain to black folk from a historical standpoint up until the present time. Let's use one thing let's talk about something that's very popular in American society, but most people don't understand what they're talking about when they bring it up. It's about race matters. And what is race and what is racism? And I've yet to find very many people that know. As a matter of fact, at one time, I used to go around the world and I would offer to give people $100. They'd tell me what racism was.
Ooh,
and you know, invariably, I couldn't find one person that could explain what racism was. Because they use the definitions that are being perpetuated by the dominant white society. But let's find out what racism and track it. Let's go back in history now. See, if you go back in history, let's go back.
Let's see. Oh yeah, so racism, clearly the idea of racism has definitely been. I would definitely say there's a narrative being spun around regarding the ideas of what racism is. Mostly to do with everything we've kind of that we've seen over since we were born. You know, being mistreated for the color of our skin. You know, being kicked out of programs or businesses and stuff like that. The works, right? So let's see what Dr. Anderson has to say about what his interpretation of what racism is.
Back to about the 1450s, as an instance. In about 1450, there was no such thing as a race. What they had in those days, they had tribes, they had religious groups, and they had nations. That was it. Those three things: tribes, nations, and religions. But there was no such thing as race. But about 1445 to 1450, at that particular time, a guy named Henry the Navigator went off the coast of Africa. And he picked up about 16 blacks and took them back to Portugal and to Italy. And he got back there, he gave them to the Catholic Church as a gift and suggested they can use them however they saw fit. And they used the Catholic Church. The reason they gave them to the Catholic Church, you see, was because prior to that time, the Catholic Church sort of played the role of being an advocate and a consoler for people who were slaves.
Oh, man, the Catholic Church, man. Hey, oh boy, Catholic Church. The Catholic Church is the huge reason why a lot of people today just can't take Christianity serious. Just putting it out there.
because to be a slave in that time, you had, again, as I said, be persecuted for being either for indebtedness or for religious persecution or a victim of a war,
Yeah.
prisoner of war.
Yep.
And so the Catholic Church was playing the role of being a great consoler, come in and comfort you. And so when Henry the Navigator gave those 16 blacks to the Catholic Church in about 1445, 1450, they kept them and used them. What we do, we use them as slaves, as servants in the Catholic Church. And they used them in that role from about 1445, 1450 up until about 1488. And in 1488, a guy named Pope Innocent, he says, we found out over this 40-some year period, having these blacks around, that's a good thing. And because we never had them before. As I said before, to be a slave, you had to be either indebted to someone or religiously being persecuted or prisoner of war. But these were neither of those things. So they said, well, this is a good thing. And so at that point in time, they injected the word race into race popped up.
Ah. What's the word I'm looking for? Oh, geez, I need to watch more TV shows. It'll come to me. Just bear with me.
Not necessarily at that point, but around that point. And by saying, okay.
I remembered it. I remember it already. The origin story of the word race. There it is.
What we're going to do now is just use them in any capacity we could. Then about 4 or 5 years later, Henry the Navigator, after Henry the Navigator gave all these things to the Catholic Church, Columbus sailed around the world in hopes of finding new land and valuables and golds, and matter of fact, even finding dope and sugar. And he ran into a continent over here called North American continent. He landed there, and they found out that it was pretty much uninhabited, except a few, about maybe 100, 200,000 at max Indians running around the land. And it was pretty much uninhabited. He went back to Europe. And so by the early 1500s, it was a major thing was going on across the world. Starting in Europe, they were suffering from famine, diseases, food shortages, and crime. And they needed to do something to resuscitate the entire European continent. And they were looking for a hope. So when Columbus came back and said, I found all this land, and it's uninhabited.
Uninhabited.
That's when racism started, right there. It picked up, going all the way back to Henry the Navigator up to this point. Racism started at that point. How did it start? Because then they said, you know what? We need to go inhabit that land and try to use it. It has value. But how are we going to do it? And people said, well, remember what Pope Innocent said back in 1487? Let's use those people called blacks, use them as a labor class. And we're going to change the whole concept of how to get wealth and power and save this continent. The entire European continent was going down the toilet. Mm-hmm. It's what we do then, we'll combine things instead of...
Yeah, it really was. Wasn't it? Was that not around the time and all that, the Black Death and all that stuff and all these wild diseases that was happening? Was it? I might have given out 1400s. All right, that's something I got to check out.
Being practicing mercantilism, as we've been doing up to this point in time. Let's come up with a new concept, and where you can own and control, get the land, get the tools and the resources, and use someone else's labor, and to enrich yourself. That becomes capitalism, and that's where the concept of capitalism started. But let's go back to the concept about race. So a race started. 9 European nations.
Create a professional logo that best reflects your brand. Just go to Wix Logo.
I have a professional logo.
Italy, France, Germany, the rest of them said they got into a race. So let's try to see who can be the first one to get over in those countries to North America, South America, Central America, and the Caribbean, and use black labor to enrich ourselves. They were in a race to develop wealth and power by going and extracting the resources out of America or owning and controlling the land and the tools and using black labor to enrich themselves. That's where race came. That was a race. A race is a contest. They began to compete. That's why you heard me say on a number of occasions before, learning how to compete. And as they began to compete as nations, They competed from about the early 1500s all the way up until about 1857, right on the eve of the Civil War. And that's when the race ended. The race ended. That was a 300-year, but the race ended then. You know why it ended? Because at that point in time, those European nations who had all pitched in together, as well as some Asian nations and Latin American, they had pitched in together to exploit black labor. And all the resources have been transferred into the hands of non-blacks.
Yep.
And the race was over in 1859. And when the race ended, they took the E off of race and stuck a suffix called ISM, which means sustain and hold on to the prevailing conditions.
Yeah.
At that particular time in 1859, whites owned almost 99% of everything in America.
Yep.
And black slaves owned practically nothing. You had about almost 4.5 to 5 million slaves, but they owned practically nothing. And the only people, and the few blacks that had gotten something was, you had about 200-some thousand blacks that were free. Collectively, they had 1/2 or 1% of anything of value.
Yep.
At that point in 1859, the race ended. And they took the E off of race and stuck the suffix ISM. That's where racism came from. It had nothing to do with minorities and poor folk and people of color.
Yep.
It had to do strictly with black people and whites, which means all the wealth and resources had been, and land, ownership, rights, privileges, businesses, income, had all been transferred into the hands of the dominant white society. And consequently, from that point on, whites would own and control everything in the country. And that was what racism was. At any time black folk asked for anything, for reparations, or affirmative action, or any preferential treatment, anything, you sort of be in an opposition to it.
Yep.
White.
So, by the way, I haven't mentioned this yet, but please, Dr. Claud, this is Dr. Claud Anderson. Please go to his YouTube channel and check his stuff out. Like it, share it, comment on it. Show him support. Like I said, I'm just here to react to it, and I'm here to learn. Right.
Whites and their sub-ethnics were to oppose anything that would allow the conditions of black folk to change. Whites were in 1859 on the eve of the Civil War. Whites in America, they were 100-foot giants, and black folk were 1-foot midgets. To make sure they owned and controlled nothing, had no power and resources. And that's where racism came from. It's remained unchanged up until this time. But what's happening now to keep black folk confused, they want to pretend that racism also is the same as bias, bigotry, hatred, personal attitudes, or discrimination.
Yeah.
Those things have nothing to do with everybody discriminates. Even in a family, you can discriminate, but you can have 5 kids and discriminate between them. That has nothing to do with racism.
Yeah.
And see, black folk must learn that and understand that black people can never be racist. All they can do in America is react to white racism.
Yeah. So, a lot of other people would just kind of simply say, we're not supposed to be bigoted or discriminate based on color of skin and stuff like that. That's what folks will like. That's like the typical, like narrative. You know what I'm saying, regarding what people's perception of racism is. And I mean, I don't know, it's fair. Like I'm the type of person that kind of when listening to somebody, I, for the most part, in order for them to convey their message as effectively as possible, I believe that part of empathy, right, is inserting yourself into their world, into their worldview. So if when Dr. Claud Anderson comes in and spins this I would say unique approach on the understanding of racism that is deeply rooted in his studies and his due diligence and his experiences and everything that he's the totality of his research. This is what he found what racism is, and I'm still learning this too, but what I'm learning to do is taking his his idea of racism and applying it so when he speaks, you know what you follow, And when I'm speaking to other people that have not been exposed to Dr. Claud Anderson's, work and stuff like that, I have to remind myself to, okay, this person sees racism like this. He sees it as discrimination, this and this and that. And then when I speak to another person, they may say, oh, well, the person that'll say black people can't be racist. You know what I mean? I'll have to understand what he means by racism. Like, what do you mean by racism? Because there's even if you look at dictionary.com, you'll actually see that racism and racist have two completely different meanings now, and it's really really stupid. I know coming up off the Webster's definition, we had a big thick book. I had a really big thick red dictionary back, growing up. And I looked up the word racism, or racist and all that stuff, and it said the belief that one's own ethnic background is superior to all others, And I don't know when that book was written. It was probably written in early '90s, maybe even the '80s. Anyway, but I remember having a conversation with my friends regarding what's the definition of racism, and these guys were telling me, that's more or less that's what the conversation about. These guys were telling me, no, it's black people can't be racist because we don't have any systemic power and stuff like that. I'm like, well, or not just that, not that per se. They mentioned that we can't be racist because we have we hold no established power in America. So that when if a black person, what I want to say is, a black person can't instill any real financial or substantial or we can't take any resources from anybody that is performing something that we deem repulsive, or we don't like it. You know what I'm trying to say? So here's a quick, if I could just give you an example instead, if it makes a little more sense. Kyrie Irving shared a tweet, you know what I mean? And then the Jewish people came and said, oh no, take it, like, we fire this guy, you know what I mean? Like, these guys can change things. You know what I mean? They take a black guy out of his job because they didn't like what he tweeted, you know what I mean? So that's the type of racism that black people don't have access to. Now we can be discriminatory, and they were telling me that discrimination is what me and my other friends were referring to when we said black people can't be racist. So that's pretty much it, right? So like I said, I gotta remember that these guys. I got to remember that when I'm speaking to certain people, their idea of what racism is different from what Dr. Claud Anderson's idea of racism is. And if I were to kind of introduce something that Dr. Claud Anderson is speaking of, and if it's specifically to do with racism, which is a lot of his stuff is, I'm gonna have to make notes to remind put them up to speed as far as the context of what Dr. Claud Anderson is using. You know what I'm trying to say? If I don't explain somebody that Dr. Claud Anderson's view on what racism is different than what their perception of racism is, it can completely screw up the entire conversation or not just the conversation, but the message especially. You as a speaker have full responsibility to deliver or to fully articulate your thoughts and opinions. It's not anybody's fault for not interpreting your speaking incorrectly. That's it's your job to speak coherently and correctly. No matter what the other person's background is, and you have to be empathetic enough to understand what context you're gonna have to explain before speaking out, right? And of course, always look out for the people that listen in bad faith. Those people exist also. Good luck good luck navigating that.
Blacks don't have the power to enslave, Jim Crow, segregate, or mistreat anybody in America.
Yeah, there we go.
Racism is an issue between blacks and whites. It has nothing to do with language groups or culture groups or other groups coming to America. It is our gays or midget. It has to do with black.
Another thing. This is a crazy one. He might speak on it. But I will listen to so much of this stuff already. I might just be speaking before he even says it himself. But race and nationality is two very different things. Even by definition, it's two very different things. It's just that people don't really apply that, right? They don't apply that, and then when if somebody were to be discriminatory against a Mexican, the Mexican person will deem that racist, right? However, that's not racism according to Dr. Claud Anderson. That's being discriminatory. So, but if it's to do if it's to do a race, then race is primarily skin color. It's skin color, but I believe he might correct me though, because it might mean foundational Black Americans or original. I forgot what he refers to blacks ADOS blacks as, but at his ADOS, what's ADOS stand for? Africans descended of slaves. I like that one a lot, but whatever. Let's go.
Black people, blacks and whites. And so now that you understand racism, be on the guard. Don't let anybody use those terms in front of you to confuse it and mix it with things that don't pertain to black folk.
Yeah.
White folks started misusing the word race after 1959 and told black folk it has to do with how you feel about somebody.
Yeah. It's a whole
and how you, whether you like them or not. Racism started off as an economic issue between blacks and whites. It is still an economic issue between blacks and whites. Now, that you know, go forward.
I want to say, so when he says, they're going to misuse the term racism to confuse blacks into thinking that it's about how you feel and stuff like that. I definitely know what he means. He's basically saying that, and this is something that's kind of bold, true, especially lately. It's like an inclusivity thing. It's like I know a lot of what's the word I want to use? A lot of the narrative or criticism. A lot of the criticism against black folk has been like this. What's the word I want to use? Well, I mean, it's not the word, but like, what's the phrase everybody likes to use for this? They like to use this trauma Olympics. You know what I mean? They want to say who are your black folk always participating in trauma, the trauma Olympics on who suffered the worst and all this other stuff. And it's like, it's not even the case. It's not even necessarily the case with us. Like, we're just 99% of the time, we're literally just exclaiming like, what happened to us, and we want justice, you know. And it's like and other people, and it's, you know, to their dismay, like it's really them enacting that upon us. So, like the first thing that's exclaimed, or the first rebuttal you hear when we start talking about reparations and stuff like that, bringing that conversation up, they talk about, well, what about all the other people that haven't received reparations over their slavery? You know, there was slavery going on in Africa. Like all these whataboutism arguments that's not conducive towards a solution to what black folks are experiencing in America today. You know what I mean? Like we're bringing up, hey, we have a grievance, right? We have a grievance that is rooted in history, facts, and all that stuff. But like the only thing they can come up with is a whataboutism argument, and a whataboutism argument is one of the key bad faith arguments that I'm going to be discussing on this channel. Like you can't discredit somebody by saying, oh, what about this? What about this situation? What happened with that? You know, why didn't you care about that situation? Like police brutality. You know, there's a myriad of, like, There's a myriad of cases where police were overusing or overstepping their boundaries as far as their correctional procedures and stuff like that. Like the guy was in handcuffs, and then this dude is just still throwing haymakers, right? And then when we bring that to to the discussion, like, hey, what about, look at this. This is injustice. Like, why are we allowing this to happen? They come up and say, well, what about black on black crime? Why come y'all never say anything about that? Like, bro, like us addressing black on black crime is not gonna solve the problem with police brutality. You know what I mean? And it's like, and this is just the thing. Like, a lot of people say these people are stupid and stuff like that. And I'm not even. Is that at this point? It's been. I was about to say it's been a couple years since the George Floyd situation. No, it's been decades. This has been going on for literal decades. And these conversations are not new. We have new leaders. We have new. First it was abolitionists. Then I'm gonna miss them. I apologize, but then there was this, Dr. King and the civil rights movement and Malcolm X. Then it was NAACP. Then it was BLM and all that stuff. And then it's just social justice warriors today. And it's like, I'm just saying, like, these conversations aren't new. So what makes you, why are you still trying to assume that these people are like something wrong with their head or anything like that? Isn't these conversations not new? They've heard the arguments from both sides, and they're still standing firm on these dog crap talking points. So they're not stupid. They're actually just, they're looking out for their best. They're looking out for the best interests of their own race. That's what they're doing. And that's what this video is kind of emblematic of. Is racism. They are participating in racism. Why? Because they want to remain they want their group to remain as the dominant society. Okay.
Produce wealth and power for our people. Take care, and I'll see you next week on Connecting the Dots.
Well, there you go.
This is Dr. Claud Anderson signing off.
All right.
The book, Black Labor.
Hello.
Okay, so that was the first video. We're pretty much gonna get through like these 3 videos for the most part today. Yep. This will pretty much do it for today. So we're gonna get through Empower Black America, Trump and the Black Voters, and the Constitution. So this is gonna be an interesting one, man.
Hello. Welcome again to Connecting the Dots.
As a friendly reminder, this right here, this Powernomics Corporation of America, that's the name of this second book. I highly recommend you all check that out, buy it, study it, share the thoughts with other folks, tell other folks to buy it, and let's actually start working on enacting this lesson plan. This because it's not, like I said, it's not a book. This is not a fiction book, right? This stuff is rooted in history and nuance and context and intelligence. You know what I mean? Get this book, right? And it needs to be rotated. It needs to be heavily distributed, and it needs to be enacted. So again, this is not some kind of boring history book. It's not just some fiction novel or anything like that. It's just something you pick up and put back down. This is something we read, we internalize. We read, we study, we internalize, and we act upon. Because the only way black folk are going to lift ourselves up by the bootstraps is if we enact everything that he says in his book. Because at this time, it's getting pretty dire. I will argue that time is running out.
I'm your host, Dr. Claud Anderson, and today I got a good topic for you. I'm sure you'll be very interested in hearing it because it's very topical. You know, I just got word that the United States Congress has approved the Congressional Black Caucus to host a forum and a hearing on Black reparations in America. And ironically, they've chosen some people that are very noted and visible Black folk in the country.
Why didn't they choose Dr. Claud Anderson? They did. They didn't choose Dr. Claud Anderson, like the dude that wrote the freaking book on reparations. The dude that sat there in Florida in that church for a good portion of an hour, probably over an hour, letting everybody know just how serious this Black situation is, how bad it has been for Black Americans. Literally wrote the playbook on Black success in America, Black economic success in America, and they didn't choose this man whoever they chose had better been pretty dang good. They had better been good because this is actually triggering.
But people who 9 times out of 10 have not had the seasoned experience or the educational training or the social economic involvement in terms of job application to be able to deal with these issues sufficiently. This is something that the dominant white society has been doing for many years. They use these individuals sort of misdirect, or what I call rope-a-dope, to confuse the issues and mislead Black folk. Now let's go back and see how the history has done this as a pattern. Let me go back as far as I can go back to show you how this pattern.
I'll take that as a no. I'll take that as a no. Yet again, they got a whole bunch of people up there that are probably let me just relax. I'm getting mad. Again, let's see what he says about this first before I get super mad.
And remain consistent. And that confuses Blacks and it keeps Blacks pretty well locked into the bottom line because they never know which way to go or who to trust and what's being said. Now, this thing first showed up, let's say, in Africa. Africa, way back in about 500 years ago. You had European slave traders would come around the African coast, and guess what they do? They would get paid, go down on the beach, and wave bright yellow cloth.
This is Dialpad Meetings.
This is a skip ad button.
To attract all the African out of the woods and out of the villages to come down and pick up the cloths, because they knew Blacks would be attracted to colorful clothing, such as red and yellow and green. They would come looking for the clothes or the cloth. And once they got down there, slave hunters had no problem, just captured them all right there on the beach and chained them and branded them and put them on.
Oh, I'm sorry about this. No, thank you. Maybe next time.
On slave ships and shipping them out of Africa. That's where that first thing began to appear, a pattern of saying, if we can attract Blacks and get them someplace and use misleading devices or individuals who got great respectabilities, like in Africa, we use some of the chiefs to do it or some of the minions to do it to attract Blacks down to the beach. Later on, I found the same thing happening, let's say in around 1818, when religion began to move through the country and Black folk wanted to join the religious movements in this country with the televangelists or the evangelists in general to become more involved in the Christianity. And so the dominant society approved ministers who they felt could best control and attract Blacks and keep them based strictly on biblical principles or what they call Catholicisms or learnings that they had learned to be.
That's why I said earlier the Catholics are a big reason why Black folk are a big reason why Black folk don't take religion in general, but especially Christianity serious at all. They don't take the Bible serious at all primarily because of Catholics, primarily because of them.
Very supportive of slavery indirectly.
Black church didn't do that much better either, but biblically they didn't do that much better, but the Catholics they kind of got the ball rolling.
That they would work hard, be obedient, and look for pie in the sky. And the ministers did a magnificent job of teaching them that. And
he knew that was funny, man. He knew that was funny.
And the ministers were rewarded. But the dominant society knew, and the slave masters knew, that since black folk had been denied an education, that most of those ministers were not equipped to be leaders for black folk in social economics or in slavery or how to get out of slavery or in politics or how to teach the black folk to form new religions and new social communities. They know they weren't qualified, but they chose those ministers. They selected them intentionally to hold the people in obedience. That stayed pretty true throughout the up until about the 19th century. They still were selecting certain kind of blacks to try to be black leaders, even though they knew full well those blacks were not totally equipped intellectually or physically or financially to be leaders for the black community. And so let's jump up now. Let's say about in the 1930s and up through the 1930s and 40s. Again, they said, now what we must do, again, is pick some of the most visible blacks to be the role models and leaders for blacks. And the first thing they turned to, again, and what they used in the history before that, was to pick entertainers. Yeah. And so people like movie stars, they became very prominent blacks.
Before he goes in, I want to say this a little bit. I ain't gonna hold y'all too much longer. Entertainers. I mean, from LeBron James to what basketball players in general. So it's a bunch of them. Our music artists and stuff like that. I don't have to name names. These people, they mean well, right? They mean well. They want people to they want to bring some attention to things and stuff like that that they feel is wrong and stuff like that. That's cool, you know. But the thing is, what these people, what these athletes don't, what they lack in is nuance and context, you know. So when you lack in nuance and context, even though what you're saying is true, right, and it needs to be heard, if you don't have the proper nuance, you don't have the proper context, anybody can come in and say anything and completely change the narrative, you know, and make you, and like, if you, it's only gonna take one time for someone to step up to you and teach you something and make you look like a fool in front of millions and millions of people. Like, that's never gonna be forgotten. And these people are gonna come in and they will use that. They will use that situation and completely destroy the entire movement, you know? So these athletes and actors and stuff like that, all these other guys, it's like I said, they mean well, but they need to understand their place. They need to understand what their usefulness is in this whole in this race war, man. This economic racism, right? This whole economic racism situation is why which is not war, but situation. They need to understand that they have popularity. Kanye West is extremely, extremely, extremely popular. Well, he's kind of he's infamous now, right? But music alone, right? Music alone, not all the interviews and all that stuff before all that stuff. He was regarded as a very, very talented person. All that stuff, right? And what he tried to do was he tried to become a leader. He tried to become a leader without understanding everything he needed to understand first. He says so himself, like he says so himself that he's trying to be this bright, this beacon of this Christian star, you know what I mean? There's somebody that's gonna come in and bring Christianity back into the limelight, into the spotlight of America, you know, and that's great, that's cool and all that stuff. But he himself also said that he's still a baby in this whole in this Christianity thing. Like his understanding of the Bible is still like very, very limited, you know, and that's just not good enough to try to assume a position of power on the with Christianity being your foundation. Like your foundation is just not sturdy enough for you to run the country based on off the foundation of, you know what I'm trying to say. His understanding of the Bible is not strong enough for him to try to lead a country off the teachings of the Bible. Like that just kind of just doesn't make any sense. Just to be completely honest. And I'm a big Ye fan. I'm a big Ye fan. Let me specify, because this is gonna I don't want people to think I don't want anybody to think this is any lighter than what it actually is. I'm not even a big fan of Ye's music. I'm not a fan at all of his clothing lines. I'm a big fan of Ye's narrative. I like what he's saying, right? It's just that it needs tailoring. It needs to be a little bit more structured. I listened to all of his interviews, and he needs, like I said, he just needs to be fine-tuned. But ultimately, he's on the right path. He's doing a lot of the same things that Dr. Claud Anderson has been preaching about this entire time. He just needs to have conversations with the right people and less conversations with people like Candace Owens. Let's see. That aside, okay, yeah. So what people like Ye need to realize is he needs to assume his role of the very, very popular guy and use it more intelligently. Excuse me. He needs to realize that his strong suit is gaining attention. That is what he does best. Now, what he's doing wrong is, who realized that first? Candace Owens. Candace Owens noticed that first, and that's why she attached him. That's why she practically glued herself by the hips of Ye for quite a few amount of years before he started doing the anti-Semitic stuff, and more or less Candace Owens more or less had to separate herself from him by way of because she worked directly with worked directly under that Jewish guy. What's his I forgot the guy's name. The Daily Wire, those folks, whatever. Yeah, she works directly under a Jewish guy, a Jewish Republican, and so they had to split ways. But with that said, Ye needs to understand. I wish somebody would tell him why. I wish somebody could explain to him coherently and effectively why Candace Owens was so buddy with him. You know, it's because she wanted the attention. She wanted attention so she can spend her own. Well, she wanted attention for the monetary gain. That's what she did it for. But if Ye truly wants what's best for black folk in America, what he was supposed to do was use his popularity, and this goes for all celebrities. This is just one of the most recent ones. Ye, Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving did that. That's what Kyrie Irving did. So yeah, Kyrie Irving is a good example. Him, Kyrie Irving, and Jay-Z, LeBron James, all these guys. They need to realize that they need to use their podium, their position to garner the attention of the world, right? Because that's what they do best, is gather attention and then bring onto the pedestal somebody that's on the grassroots, right? Somebody that's actually down in the on the floor, on the foundation, trying to build everything up. Bring somebody that's well spoken, that's nuanced, that's well articulate. You know, all of that stuff. Somebody that can exclaim, "Hey, this is a real problem, and this is why." And here's the solutions. Here's what they're gonna try to tell us, and here's the responses to those things. And Dr. Claud Anderson is really that person. And I gotta give Ye some credit. I have to give him some credit. Back in 2020, he actually did tell both Joe Biden and Donald Trump actually to speak to Dr. Claud Anderson regarding the rights or regarding Black American issues in blacks issues in America. Not blacks issues, but foundational or Africans descendant of slaves. That's what I'm trying to say. And what their response to that was absolutely nothing. They did nothing. Right. So they did nothing. So I give credit. I'll give Ye some credit for that. Kyrie Irving was a good example. His idea was to bring light and bring attention to blacks that believe that they are Hebrews, and he did that by way of sharing a tweet. So, but the problem is, Jewish people did not like that, or rather, white passing Jewish people did not like that, and they acted upon it, right? So, which is unfortunate. But yeah, like I said, so that is the proper use of a celebrity's image. That's what they should be doing with their image. They shouldn't be trying to assume positions of power, because they ultimately won't. They're just not nuanced enough. They don't have all the context. Normally, at least, hey, if they're on the grassroots themselves and they're actually making things happen, maybe like a Killer Mike or something like that, then yeah, they'd be cool. I'll give them a pass. You know what I mean? But a lot of the times it's just like they kind of just talking, and they may not know it, but they're actually representing the wrong people.
And Hattie McDaniels from Gone with the Wind, she became a very visible black. They called on her to speak out on race matters, even though Hattie McDaniel didn't have the education or the background to be speaking out on racial matters. But they chose her to do that intentionally, and picked her as being a leader. Following that, in the 1930s, here's Jesse Owens, who set a record for being the fastest human being alive.
Oh yeah,
they made Jesse Owens sort of a leader for black folk, a spokesperson for black people, and they paid him.
So this is, man. So it was actually part of the game plan. It was actually part of it. So I would argue to say that they wanted to, that Jesse Owens and the other young lady, that they tried to, they wanted to, hey, I'm not the perfect person for this type of conversation, but I know who is. And they were like, no, man, we'll give you this money for you to say this and say that. Like, come on now, let's just get with the program, man. Well,
we go all around the country through the 30s and 40s into the 50s, again, as being a spokesperson for black folk. Even though Jesse Owens was a fantastic, marvelous, super
Meet DialPad's modern business phone
athlete, but he was not equipped to deal with politics and social economics, or to try to be a leader for black folk. Joe Louis was used in the same manner. They chose Joe Louis because, again, he was a heavyweight champion of the world, and he had beaten the Germans. That's their Max Malin, and proved himself to be able to knock out some of these what Germans felt was the superhuman beings, the white German boxers. And so they used him and made Joe Louis a hero. Joe Louis went all across America being a spokesperson for black folk. Even though eventually he wound up being bankrupt and being a door opener at gambling casinos in Las Vegas. But again, they used him to be a leader for black folk, to speak out on racial issues, racial matters, even though he was not equipped to do it. The same thing stayed true with athlete also.
I'll be right back, everybody.
Also went into the areas of entertainment. They started using black entertainers again to be spokespersons, and even some, again, they picked up a few ministers to do it again.
Yeah.
And they picked up ministers
church.
that were very well equipped on religious matters, but they were not equipped on history and racism in America.
Yeah.
That even showed up.
They don't want to pick the experts. They didn't want to pick the people that actually spent their lives work. They didn't because it was plenty of them. Of course it was a gang of people digging their noses in books and history books, trying to completely understand the intricacies and the problems of Black Americans. But they didn't want those people. They wanted people that were invested their times in other matters. It's pretty weird. In
the 1960s Civil Rights Movement, when you had a major contest going on, a battle going on between Martin Luther King on one side and Malcolm X on the other side. Martin Luther King was a very, very bright man, very knowledgeable about religion.
Hello, Tisha.
But he was not that keenly endowed in knowledge on understanding race matters in America. and so to white society, he was much more palatable because he talked about being compassionate, coming to being out, seeking better angels, getting along with people, social integration. Well, on the other side, they had Malcolm X. Malcolm X was much more in depth and breadth in terms of race matters. But the dominant society preferred Martin Luther King over Malcolm X. And so Martin Luther King became the great spokesman for Black folk, even though the masses of Black folk in that particular time was more inclined to go along with Malcolm X, go along with Stokely Carmichael or Rap Brown or the Black Panthers. Most of the blacks of that country in the 1960s were more attracted to Malcolm X than to Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
But the dominant society chose Martin Luther King to be the leader rather than Malcolm X.
Of course.
And that is hell's truth. And let me jump up to recent times. Again, they still continue to pick Black athletes and Black entertainers or Black comedians to be spokespersons
Black
for
comedians too.
Donald Trump has proven to be no exception to that. He figured that out, how to use Black folk. Said, if I can't get the Black ministers, I'll get a few of them to help me to mislead the Blacks or to be what's called a lead cow.
He got some weirdos, man. He did get some weirdos, man. I don't know. Donald Trump is definitely he definitely is a wild man. Definitely a wild dude, man. Like I said, I'm gonna check out. I gotta check out this this Powernomics stuff. Definitely gonna do that. But I mean, not Powernomics. The Platinum Plan. But this guy, man, he was pretty much. I don't know. It's like I said. If I can be charitable on this situation regarding Donald Trump, which I know is pretty difficult to do for a lot of people. I would just say him being white, they just don't care about Black issues. He's too busy trying to make money. And Black issues is actually something that you either gonna have to live through or you're gonna have to perform a pretty hefty amount of research. So Trump was not. He just doesn't care. He's trying to make money. So he's trying to how we get the Black people to vote for us. So it's nice that he actually thought about us, I guess, whatever. But at the same time, he was also he also was trying to fight against the whole narratives being spun around him being perceived as a racist. There's a whole lot of stuff, whatever. However, what I want to say. So somebody he probably tried to ask hey, how do we get the Black vote or whatever, and somebody just told him, well, let's just get some Black people and let's do what we always do, just get some random Black people to endorse us. And I don't know, it don't seem like it worked that way, to be honest with you. So like I said, if he had worked with actual experts in this whole Black stuff, he would have got a better outcomes had he had worked with Blacks that's actually on the grassroots, and not just Black folks in the spotlight. Very, very different outcomes or solutions that's going to come from those types of steps towards. What I'm trying to say. You're going to get very different outcomes depending on whom you use to address this, tackle the situation with. celebrities and people with high positions of power are not necessarily the best people for that.
Back in the slaughterhouses.
Real quick, I would argue that if it had been if it was a big corporation, I would say the best people to talk to regarding making change is like supervisors. I would say those should be the people that you should talk to in order to get the best possible solutions. Tisha says, for a businessman, he was pretty poor at making connections with diverse communities. So couldn't agree more. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
They'd take a cow, put one bell on him around his neck, let him walk up to the ramp into the slaughterhouse, and the rest of them would hear the bell and they would follow suit, go right into the slaughterhouse with the lead cow. They use ministers for that. Well, again, Donald Trump had figured that out, and he picked a few ministers. But in addition to that, he also figured he'd get him a few athletes and entertainers.
Yeah.
And he invited them to meet with him in Washington, D.C. He invited Jim Brown, who's a fantastic athlete, a good-hearted man, a hard-working man who was very black conscious and very concerned about blacks.
Really?
And but at the same time, they brought in Keon West, who's just a rap singer. And then they went and got Steve Harvey, who was a comedian, and set them up, again, to be spokespersons for black people in terms of dealing with Donald Trump and the political circumstance in this country. And that put them in a very, very negative position because they were ill-equipped to be able to deal with these issues. But Trump used them. And so what we have to start learning how to do is, how do we break this cycle? How do we break this cycle when now, again, you got the Congressional Black Caucus going to have
I say the only way to break the cycle is by taking control and doing it ourselves, man.
A hearing on rap issues in this country. But rather than trying to pick the best qualified blacks in the country, they prefer to pick those who will adhere to the traditional thing of maintaining the status quo in black folk.
Yeah.
And that's what you call rope-a-dope.
Yeah.
Hey, the people at Discovery Channel came to me and asked me to do the impossible, go undercover and show. And
I'm gonna do the impossible.
And Muhammad Ali used it very successfully back in his days. He used what's called rope-a-dope. He would be in the ring fighting the fighter, and if he wanted to rat that fighter out and confuse the fighter, he just simply lean on the ropes and let the other fighter wear himself out, swinging at Muhammad Ali. And once he got tired, then Muhammad then would start fighting back. The dominant white society do that quite often. They let groups come in and try to swing at the white society and making no effect and no impact on them until they wear themselves out. It can be the Black Lives Matter or the marches or demonstration, where they regularly have marches all over the country. Let's march again to commemorate the 1963 march. Let's march again to commemorate crossing the.
Only thing that's happening is folks is losing money only thing that's happening is from all these marches is people is losing money because they should be at work.
PD Bridge down in Alabama, and they go through.
They don't the people in charge, the people that make these changes. They don't care about these marches that people are participating in. They don't care. They only care because I would say they'd care because the people that are marching are probably working under them. So also that's why all these people called off of work. Okay, well I'm gonna let's keep that in let's put all that in the log. Let's write them up as soon as they come back.
Through all these changes, just wear blacks out. They use all their energy and money flying all over the country, attending these meetings and marching, and now they're gonna have these hearings. And now there are a lot of very conscious blacks in America, very well-educated blacks in America.
Yeah.
A lot of blacks that are knowledgeable about reparations and how it should be carried out for black folk.
Yeah.
Now, why don't they choose those people? They're not going to choose them for a very simple reason. They want to choose black people, visible blacks in the country who they got confidence in, are not going to try to change the status quo.
You got it.
And that is a shame. That's been going on throughout history, all the way back to the African coast, and it's still going on now. But what black folk need to do is to say this: we're not going to accept any black person that gets up and tries to be a model to represent black folk unless he can do two or three things. First, he can show us beyond a shadow of a doubt that he has a long history of academic training in pursuing race matters in politics and understanding the social economic dilemma of black folk, and is willing to commit himself to trying to change that, point one.
Okay.
Point two, to show that he's had enough experience in all levels of government and business that now he's learned some skills and how to finesse the dominant white society and get some changes brought about for black folk.
Big one.
And thirdly, he must show beyond a shadow of a doubt that he's not just there to be a shadow and based on personality, and he's there just to be a rope-a-dope or to try to mislead blacks and sham them and keep them contained while the rest of the society goes right past blacks and blacks remain a permanent underclass in the society.
Yeah. Get leaders that know what the heck they're talking about. Get leaders that are fearless, and get leaders that will stand up to the status quo and smear it. Right? Completely dismantle it, because those are the leaders we're gonna need in order for things to actually change, turn around for us, you know. And overall, before any of those things, these leaders need to be well learned and well versed in the system. Because, like I said, send a dope up there to try to make change, they're not gonna get anywhere, because they're gonna get finessed and trick themselves into saying some stuff that's ultimately gonna be used against us and against the entire group. And it's gonna completely derail the fight.
That's where we are today. That's where we were about 500 years ago. Black folk are still confined to the lowest levels in this country, with a poverty rate that's higher than anybody else. They got the least amount of wealth. They're in a dangerous position. And people like Donald Trump, if he's going to be serious about doing something for black, he needs to quit shamming.
Yes.
And come out and pick some real, truly well-educated blacks that understand what black folk need and knows exactly what to request, that to be able to help and qualify blacks to a better quality of life. Same thing with the Congressional Black Caucus. They need to.
Yes. You hear that, Donald Trump? Do you hear that, Donald Trump? Because I saw he made some kind of speech somewhere. He made some kind of speech talking about he's coming back and he's attacking CRT. What? No, don't do that. Don't. If you, bro, you were going in the right direction with the platinum plan. Stick with that. Right? If you want blacks, if you want a shot at winning this, you're gonna need black folks' help, whether you want to realize it or not. Republicans do need black folks' help. When was the last time a Republican won the popular vote? Maybe if y'all started changing y'all narrative, start changing y'all your viewpoints, and stop. I mean, not even just what am I talking? Maybe if y'all just stop freaking lying and stop being willfully ignorant about the black struggles and actually start embracing the truth, you might be able to get somewhere with black Americans, because we going through the same dog crap with Democrats. And I would love Republicans to remain competitive in the political party, because if they're competitive, that means Democrats have to also be competitive. Last thing we want is a monopoly of the political of politics. Americans don't need that. We should not ever want that. We want both parties to be competitive, so they both try to fight for our attention. So they both want to work. So they both will want to service Americans. And at this rate, Republicans are going to be wiped off the face of the earth, because their ideals are just too. It's too stuck in 20 years ago. It's too stuck 30 years ago. It's not going to work.
To quit shuffling and jiving too, and pick some very seriously well-educated blacks in this country to come to watch.
He's riding a wave with CRT. Interesting. Riding a wave with CRT. Yeah, I would say a lot of Republicans are doing that, huh? I like to know what more you I like to know exactly what you mean by that statement, though. That's an interesting thing you just said, though.
Washington, D.C. and lay out a very comprehensive reparation plan rather than shucking and jiving and trying to maintain the pattern that's been going on for 500 years. That's my comments and my commentary this day on reparations, and how blacks have been misused and abused and to mislead their own people for 500 years.
Yeah.
Have a pleasant day. Keep the faith. See you next week.
Yes, sir. All right.
So do you see it more of a trend?
Hello.
Okay, we're getting through this. We're getting through this. He has a long come on. He has a long oh, we might squeeze in one more video. Who knows? Let's just see how I feel. It is gonna be a booty ton of editing I'm gonna have to go through. Let's see here. Let's see here. Where we leave off at. I think we're gonna save Trump and the black votes for last. Get into this Constitution.
Here we are back on the Connecting the Dots YouTube channel. 60s with black. Here we are back on the Connecting the Dots YouTube channel. And here I'm with you, Dr. Claud Anderson, your forensic historian. Today I want to talk about something that's very important also, because it brought to my mind some comments made about people about the United States Constitution, where they were saying that they got constitutional rights and blacks had constitutional rights. Let's get very specific for a second and cut the BS. That based on the basic Constitution of the United States, black people have never really had any substantive rights that they could pick up and acquire and use. Let's go back in history, because see, the Constitution was written specifically based on what white folk wanted to do with black folk in the country. And that was to use them as a labor class under a doctrine called the doctrine of unequal exchange. And when they first started bringing blacks into the country, they said straight up that black people should never be permitted to enjoy the fruits of white society. That was a cardinal rule. And to make sure that stayed in effect, they put in effect they call a doctrine of unequal exchange. And so when the Constitution was being considered, they met in Philadelphia, and they said, now we're going to put into place, start a whole new democracy in the world. Make the United States the cradle of democracy, where anybody around the world can come here and get all these freedoms and rights. And they said, and let's write that up. And Madison has suggested, and then they said, well, Benjamin Franklin had to say, I support that. And Thomas Jefferson.
He's trying to get the popular vote again among conservatives. Oh, geez. If Donald Trump if he can't get the popular vote among conservatives, okay. Yeah. I know what you're talking about. The Republican Party has been split big time. It's like Donald Trump is effectively created a new style of Republican. And I think you got a point. Yeah, he's trying to I see what you get there. A lot of things. Yeah, a lot of Republicans think he's a clown now. Yeah, I can see. Damn, that's man. Oh well. Yeah, a lot of yeah. Oh well. So that's it. I mean, that's just gonna be the thing, man. Because hey, if Republicans can't remain competitive, and Democrats primarily just take over politics, and they can pretty much do whatever the heck they want. They don't have to fight for for Americans or they don't have to fight for service in Americans anymore. This is gonna be just a new political party that's gonna call to arms. You know, they're probably gonna take on a lot of the talking points of Republicans and then fine tune it and make it better. And maybe it's a good thing that Republicans get wiped out. Who knows? Yeah. So again, hopefully, like I said, the worst case scenario, Democrats just take over and no competitive group is going to take replace of Republicans. That's the worst thing that's the worst thing that can happen. And if the Democrats do take over and there is no rise to power of another political party, or if it takes too long, I just suggest that black folks make our own political party and we vote primarily we make our own political party, and we obviously funnel all of our needs as a group of people, not wants but needs. We funnel all of our needs as a political party into those constituents, those representatives, and hold them to task, right? And vote primarily with that person. And I believe that black folk make up 30% of the voting blocks and amongst polls and stuff like that. I believe that's what I heard once upon a time. With that said, even if we don't win, right? Even if black folk don't win these races against the Democrats and libertarians or whoever comes to power, at least we're not giving our votes to people that are not trying to enact change amongst our communities. So if all the Republicans become libertarians, which is kind of likely, the libertarians will notice that there's a big chunk of votes being quote unquote squandered to this black political party. So they're gonna be like, okay, so how do we get these black folks to vote for us instead of wasting their votes on this person that's never gonna win? And obviously they're gonna be like, okay, well, we can't give them everything they want because this it's not the juice isn't worth the squeeze, or whatever that quote goes. But rather they can give us some of the things, just to kind of bait us in. And that's kind of a good place to start as far as politics is concerned. If that's not available, if that's not possible, then we should, hell, I'd say don't even bother, to be honest with you. If Democrats take over politics and there's no competitive rival party to combat against them for the people that to a popular party for people to vote for, then I would say, yeah, like I said, don't even freaking bother. And we just need to just focus on ourselves and fixing our own issues.
Jefferson, I would write it, and Washington, George Washington, okay, fine, you write it up. And so they started writing the United States Constitution. And after the Declaration of Independence in 1776. So in 1779, they came and met in Philadelphia to put this thing together. They said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to write a United States Constitution. And but say we got one problem, though. The problem is that we're going to write this Constitution to be an inspiration for all the people in the world that can come here and get what we call the American dream, which means free labor and free land. And but to do that, we got a
free
problem.
Labor and free land. Was that
we're going to take the land from the Indians.
I think the American dream changed over time. I thought I was always led to believe that the American dream was like the white picket fence, 2 kids and a dog, and a wife or whatever too, right? But I mean, just the nuclear family, right? That's what I assumed the American dream was back then. But maybe, like I said, I learned a lot listening to this guy. So things was a lot different when he was coming up, obviously.
We're gonna offer them free labor. But how do we do that? How do we write a constitution that's gonna steal the Indian land and shut black folk down?
We're better off with Democratic Party. Oh, I hope so. Damn.
And make them 3/5 of a human being equal to a field animal, and use them to enrich everybody but themselves. They said so. They met in Philadelphia, and for the first week of the meeting, with all these about 56 so-called people who leaders in the country are going to come together and write a constitution. They said we got to resolve how we're going to do that, because we look like hypocrites if we're going to enslave all these black folk at the same time invite everybody else to come to the country to get everything and give these black folk nothing. How do we put that into a constitution? And so they met in that first week discussing this. How do we do it? And they said, well, first of all, let's close the doors and close the shutters on the windows so nobody can hear us. And they finally discussed it and argued about it. Yeah, we need to have this. We need to be open. We need to be the cradle of democracy. We need to be offering freedom to everybody. We need to saying that every human being got a guaranteed right for life and liberty and pursuit of property. And they said, well, we can't, but black folk can be the property. How do we do that? And so finally they came up with a good suggestion. It says, here's what let's do. Let's start in the Constitution. Let's use very broad and ambiguous language. and we talk about whites, people coming who can classify as whites are being viewed as whites versus those who come in here classified as slaves and be viewed as property. And so what they did, the Constitution, they wrote up two things. They used language in the Constitution that spoke to black folk and language in the Constitution that spoke to whites. So if you read the United States Constitution, and it says very specific that all human beings have a right for life, liberty, and pursuit of property or happiness. They weren't talking about black folk. When they said that all human beings have a right to vote, all citizens this, all citizens that, they were only talking about black folk, meaning white folk. When they want to talk about black folk, they use different language. In the code, in the Constitution, they talked about black people. They use coded words like those who indebted, those who in bondage, that unhappy lot, those who are.
Dialpad's where work comes together. It gives our team one beautiful workspace for anywhere
I have a beautiful workspace.
Who have no rights, those who are without privilege. They use very broad terms that you never know who they were talking about. And they're those who are 3/5 of a human being, those who are equal to a field animal.
Yeah.
And those who are in bondage.
3/5.
That was all those broad terms were used for black folk.
Insane.
They put this piece of document together called the Constitution. So that's what everybody listened to and read. But black folk are never told that you're not in the Constitution, except underneath those very broad terms they were using to identify you. And this went into effect in 1789. And then, as soon as they ratified it in 1789, the very next year in 1790, they came up with a thing called the First Nationalization and Immigration Law. And what they said in that is that now we're going to invite all these people from around the world to come to America. Give us your humble, your free, your hungry, your poor, seeking freedom, and all this kind of BS. And but you might see now on the statue, bottom of the Statue of Liberty, they weren't talking about black folk at that point in time. Even though, ironically, a black woman had modeled for that statue, but at the bottom of it, the inscription was only for whites coming from around the world, because what they want to do is to populate this country with whites and to dominate and own and control, and black folk to be impoverished and poor and to be equal to a field animal. And so that came up in 1789. It was called the First Nationalization and Immigration Law, which says that black folk would never be able to enjoy the fruits of white society. Now, that stayed into effect in the Constitution all the way up until, let's go up ahead now and see how they maintain that. Let's jump up to, let's say, 1803. In 1803 now, they had a.
Hey, like I said, man, check it out, man. Like, go to check out Claud Anderson's YouTube material. Like and comment, man. Get us do this roses, man.
A case called the Marlboro and Madison case that was talking about some major issues in the country about who can do what. And at that time they said, let's let the Supreme Court make a decision. So they established the United States Supreme Court, and they stacked that Supreme Court with all white slave owners. The first 57 people appointed to the United States Supreme Court were white slave owners. Naturally, they were racist, but they put them into the Supreme Court. And but one thing they did not give them, which the white Supreme Court had been abusing, they gave them authority to do three things on the Supreme Court. One, to inject themselves into their lower case rulings in the court system. Two, to be involved, they can be involved in ambassadorial appointments. Or three, they can get involved in anything where a federal official has failed to carry out his duties. Those are the only three roles and goals and authorities that the United States Supreme Court held. And that came in through what they call the Marlboro and Madison decision.
Okay.
And that went along like that up until about 1857, when all of a sudden a black man says, I want some rights. I should be free. I was living in Missouri, now I'm in Illinois. I should be free. I want to have a right to be excluded from bondage.
Yeah.
He went to the Supreme Court, and then we went to Supreme Court Justice Haney and his court ruled against him, saying a black man has no rights that a white person is bound to respect.
Ain't that something? Yeah. Yeah, that racism ran deep, man. That racism ran deep. It was really bad when they were outwardly about it. Hopefully things are a little bit better now. Now that we got the internet, we can report on like on malpractices and stuff like that. But man,
respect, period. Because you're black, you have no rights. And so, but Dred Scott says, but I should have some rights based on the Constitution. All these things, but I should have a right to vote and be a citizen and get land and resources. And they said, no, it's not, because you're not a citizen. You are property. You have no rights. And therefore you have no rights that white folk are bound to respect. That's the United States Constitution. The Constitution is made up of 12 amendments, 1 through 12. And those 1 through 12 amendments were strictly for anybody coming to America who can be classified as whites. They got everything they wanted into the present time. They had no need for anything else. They had no need for anything but beyond those 12 amendments. But after the Civil War, and Civil War was over, you had a few radical Republicans said we have to make some changes in the Constitution, because the Dred Scott decision told Dred Scott in 1857 that he had no rights that a white man was bound to respect. You guys can't turn 5 million black folks, ex-slaves, are loose and say they have no rights. We have to come up with a constitution for them. So what they did then, the radical Republicans got together and they enacted 3 laws. The 13th Amendment made 3 laws injected into the Constitution. The 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, the 15th Amendment. Those 3 laws are put into the Constitution as a second Constitution to be an add-on to the 1 through 12 Constitution. Nobody tells you this, but let's connect those dots. Whites in America, for all those 360 years, they had all their rights embedded in the 1 through 12 amendments in the Constitution.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
They didn't have any issues abiding by that. Everybody understood what it was for. Whites got all the rights to vote, doing what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
White women got everything they wanted to get. But after the Civil War, when the radical Republicans made an addition to the Constitution by making it a second Constitution, the 13th and 14th and 15th Amendment, they put in those clauses which were specifically designed to give rights and resources to black people in America, native blacks, nobody else. The 13th Amendment says right across the board that blacks in America must be treated in all respects equal to how a white person is treated in America.
Yeah.
And so if you're not enslaving whites, you have no justification ground for mistreating and enslaving blacks. And that if you're going to give white folks rights and privileges and resources, you must also give them to blacks. That's the 13th Amendment, that blacks should be
Radical Republicans. Radical Republicans.
be treated in all manners equal to how whites are being treated. That was the 13th
Definitely one of those radical Democrats, I'll tell you that much.
Amendment. The 14th Amendment went a little further and said that it's obliging or mandated upon every level of government to exercise all necessary means and measures to lift the incidence of slavery off the backs of black people. It didn't say anything about gays, women, midgets, humpbacks, people with hemorrhoids, ingrown toenails. It says of black people to contract the Dred Scott decision. That's why you had Republicans, radical Republicans, stand up in the House of Representatives and say that in this country, only 2 things that a black person will ever be. They're going to be free or they're going to be slaves. But to be free, they must minimally have 40 acres, a mule, and $100.
Yep.
And that's what the 13th and 14th Amendment is going to be about. And the 15th Amendment. In addition to that, to make sure that this Dred Scott decision, which says a black man has no rights, get eradicated, we're going to also enact civil rights laws. They tried to write the 1865 Civil Rights Law and again in 1867, strictly and solely for black people. The civil rights laws in this country were put in a place only for black people, nobody else. Whites got all their civil rights in the 1st through the 12th. And all the immigrants coming in this country that are viewed and classified as whites got it in the 1 through 12. All Asians coming to this country, Hispanics and Arabs coming to this country who are classified as whites, they got their rights in the 1 through 12. Women got all their rights through the 1 through 12. Gays and homosexuals got their rights in the 1 through 12. But the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment was.
I heard that back then Republicans were actually Democrats and party ideals were reversed. I think Anderson mentioned that before.
Been strictly and solely for black people, period. Nobody else. And that's what it was for. And what they said is that black folk must minimally have some access to some resources to be a competitive people.
Yeah.
Now, that was in 1866, 1865. Now, by 1868, 69, some whites down in New Orleans from the meatpacking industry says, well, let's go out of the 1 through 12 amendment. Let's go over into the 13th and 14th amendment and use all those amendments that's set aside for black folk. Why can't we use them? And so they filed a lawsuit in 1869 saying we want to be able to use all those amendments for black folk. And that was they went to the Supreme Court. They got into the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court made a major ruling in 1872 called the Slaughterhouse case, which says that no white person or anybody else is entitled to use the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, and those civil rights laws was written strictly and exclusively for black people. That's called the Slaughterhouse case of 1872. And then later on in 1879, the Saunders case said the same thing, that the 13th and 14th and 15th Amendment civil rights laws were put in place to protect the ex-slaves in America, the black population. They should not be entered by anyone else and be misused, because if you let other people use it, that's how whites come up with this thing about if you're going to try to take back what we took from you, that's reverse discrimination. So that's why it's a joke to have all these other groups coming here being classified as immigrants and white immigrants, and again, being able to use the 13th and 14th and 15th Amendment.
Yeah.
That was strictly for black folk and ex-slaves. If they're not ex-slaves, Native Americans, ex-slaves, black Americans, ex-slaves, they have no entitlements of the 13th, the 14th, the 15th Amendment of the civil rights laws. Neither were women entitled to be under there. Women got all their rights. Women all the way through slavery. White women had all their rights. The only thing they didn't have in 1850 when they started the civil rights movement, and when they started the women's movement, they were looking for the right to vote. Why? Because they said we want to have a right to vote even if we don't own property. Because up until the end of the Civil War, or really up until the 1919, white women had to own property to vote.
Yeah.
But white women who did own property have always had the right to vote. Even during slavery, white women had the right to vote if they were property owners.
Yep.
And so what I'm
that was one of the big ones I heard from him, especially like the foundational feminists and stuff like that, women's rights activists and stuff like that. I don't know. It's just so weird, man. I guess it falls on me that I didn't do the proper, due diligence and just relying on word of mouth and stuff like that. But and that's, this is just but like when you still, even with that aside, it's easy to see how a narrative can be completely flipped from mishandling the proper narrative of a situation, because had I never heard of Dr. Claud Anderson or heard any of these, talking points and stuff like that, I'd have just assumed that that women were just literally disallowed the right to vote. And and everybody can assume, everybody knows that's there's no way you can just justify that being, there's no way you can justify that being like a okay thing to do. Obviously, right? Everybody deserves. If you're gonna live in the country, everybody should be able to vote. And to discriminate that by something like your sex is just insane, right? And it's like they knew. It's like I'm just saying, like, we, of course, it's good that everybody were allowed a chance. It's good that everybody was allowed to vote. The feminism movement was necessary. Don't get me wrong, but it's just, I just don't think it was necessary to spin that narrative in the way that they did. Because it's like I have a big problem with it's a lie. You know what I mean? Like, these women were allowed to vote. It's just that they didn't have property. Which we can take it a step backwards and kind of realize that, well, a lot of women wouldn't they weren't allowed jobs and stuff like that. They weren't allowed to work and stuff like that, which lends to another systemic problem, which is something they could have fought for. They could have tackled the situation through that, but just automatically saying like this, just rely on the buzzwords, you know what I mean? Oh yeah, women weren't allowed to vote. I'm like, oh really? That's crazy, you know? Whereas if you actually did, when you actually did the research, it's like you would realize that they were allowed to vote. It's just that it was conditional. Like voting for everybody was conditional. Like, and it's like men that didn't have properties weren't allowed to vote either. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, how come? It's intellectually dishonest to just say, oh, women were not allowed to vote. And but again, you know, the feminism movement was necessary, and everybody, both men and women, were universally allowed to vote. Well, unless you was black, obviously, but yeah, they enacted some legislation that allowed people that didn't have property to vote. So that's awesome. But I'm just saying, like, it's still, I don't like the intellectual dishonesty of saying using buzzwords to get some attention on something, because it kind of just raises, it's kind of like, for a guy like me, it rings alarms as far as, well, now I have to be on guard when I'm watching people speak, because you have a history of flipping narratives, flipping words around, and flipping context around to suit your narratives, and it's just it's slimy. I'm just saying it's slimy.
I'm saying to you is that the immigration policies and civil rights laws in this country have been misused and abused, and the primary perpetrator of that has been the United States Supreme Court. And here's what I'm saying about the United States Supreme Court. The United States Supreme Court is a guardian of racism in this country.
Ooh.
Their primary responsibility, all the way back to their appointed in 1803, was to be able to misuse and guard and maintain slavery and the subordination of black folk in the country. And that is in violation of the 13th and 14th Amendment.
Yep.
The United States Supreme Court has no right to overrule anything pertaining to black folk in terms of rights, obligations, privileges, and reparations. They have no rights. Their rights are restricted to being in ambassadorial appointments and relieving people who have violated their oath of office in the federal government, in a federal job, or in a lowercase ruling. That's it. And so black folks.
Tell them, Dr. Claud Anderson. Let them know what their place is, man. Let them know what their place is, please. And why are we not talking about this? Why is he the only person saying this stuff, bro? Tell him, Dr. Claud.
People need to understand and sort of reverting back and saying we're reclaiming our rights and privileges and recognition in the 13th and 14th Amendment and the civil rights laws. That's our laws, nobody else's. And cease and desist allowing anybody to come in this country saying that they have a right to the 13th and 14th and 15th Amendment and the civil rights laws. Those civil rights laws have been corrupted. They were corrupted all through history. They were corrupted in the 1960s when black folk again let everybody come in and proclaim them to say we're entitled to, we got 14th Amendment rights. We got rights to this and that. You don't. If you're not black, you had no rights. Anyway, that's Connected the Dots for you. This is Dr. Claud Anderson signing off again this day for Tuesday on Connecting the Dots.
Ooh-wee. That one was heavy. All right. So before we go into the next one, I want to go ahead and put this on the screen. Want to go over this platinum plan for a little bit. Let's see if I can just display. What's the okay. Let me just do something real quick here. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. All right. The Platinum Plan, President Trump's pillars. This was, if I recollect correctly, was inspired by something that Ice Cube put together. I know Ice Cube got a lot of flack for trying to even reason with Donald Trump. What's that guy named? Steve Harvey got flack for trying to do business or negotiate with Donald Trump, and that's not what we're supposed to do. That's like they as black people, not even celebrities, anything like that. This is what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to use their platforms. They're supposed to use their celebrity status to reach places where the regular folk can't reach, and do business and negotiate the smart way, the business-like way, and not with our feelings and emotions with people that we may not agree with per se. And that's putting it lightly, obviously. Like I said, a lot of people want to make a case for Donald Trump being a racist. Hey, go crazy. But I'm gonna commend these brothers for talking to Donald Trump and putting together like the only thing the Black Americans would have been given in this nation's freaking history since apparently these radical Republicans. And I gotta put it out there again, man. You gotta give it up to the sisters that sway these men's emotions, so they actually start caring about black people. I definitely gotta give them credit for that. All right, so yeah, the Platinum Plan, President Trump's pillars. Y'all probably muted me by now and start reading it yourselves, but I gotta make this somewhat original, man. I gotta put my own flavor in it. Anyway, so first check mark was opportunity. By achieving historic employment levels for Black Americans as well as increasing access to capital for new business, President Trump has been committed to ensuring all Black Americans can achieve the American dream. Okay, I believe these are just the goals for this Platinum Plan. So security. By signing into law the celebrated First Step Act, President Trump has brought common sense criminal justice reform to the American people for the first time in decades, while ensuring that our streets and communities are safe for families and business owners. Heard about that reform. That benefits all Americans, to be honest with you, right? But black people were heavily impacted by the crime bill and other things that were instilled by Democrats and Joe Biden. So it's good that it has some. It's good that our outcries. It's good that yet again our outcries as a people was permeated and echoed throughout America, so that the people in power actually instilled some fair. Change to some fair change to these obscene laws. The last goal here is fairness, as demonstrated through the actions of the initiative, investment into opportunity zones, as well as address health disparities. I gotta say something about that real quick. The health disparities is something that I've heard Black women complain about regarding childbirth, which is something extremely important in our communities. I've heard a time and time again of how bad things has kind of been going on regarding childbirth in Black women, and I don't know if this is exactly what this was about. I don't know if they directly benefited from this aspect of the Platinum Plan. Black women especially, but the people that put this in place should have been echoing this to those women. I think this especially the health disparities and stuff like that. I think this definitely would have won them over had they emphasized this to do with the problematic approaches nurses take towards dealing with Black mothers or Black childbirth. Anyway, wage gaps and necessary education reforms. Man, dude, oh goodness, this one. Golly. Education reforms. if there's something that every black person in America can agree on, if we can't agree on reparations and our treatment and Black Lives Matter and police brutality, we all can agree that the education systems and there's a huge education disparity happening in America. And some obviously depending on who you ask, they'll point the fingers at different people, but we all can collectively agree that education and poverty-stricken communities, especially in the urban communities in Chicago and Mississippi, all over the world, all over America, it's a big problem. And if Donald Trump was going to actually address that with actual resources, with tangibles, then sounds great to me. Donald Trump works every day to advance a fair and just America for the black community. That's what he says, and that's what the goals were. So let's see. Let's go into details a little bit. President Trump's promise to Black America over 4 years, increased it over 4 years, and I believe this was pitched at the end of his last election. The 2020 election, and I guess we just didn't vote for him. I believe so. I'll have to look it up. If anybody in the chat knows, then that'd be great. Oh, by the way, what's up, everybody that's tuning in? Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, increase access to capital in black communities by almost $500 billion. That's not that bad, man. For a group of people that make up 14% of the United States population, that don't sound too bad. 3 million new jobs for the black community, creating $500,000 new black-owned businesses. Increase access to capital in black communities by almost $500 billion. Okay, save urban neighborhoods with highest policing standards. Safe urban neighborhoods with highest policing standards. Okay, well, I believe when I see it. Coming from a Republican, I believe it when I see it. Commit to working on a Second Step Act. I think wasn't this enacted? The Second Step Act. Access to better education and job training opportunities. Dope. Give black churches the ability to compete for federal resources for their community. Give black churches the ability to compete for federal resources for the community. This needs to be this is gonna have to be meticulously. All right. I've heard some horror stories about some black churches, man. I'm just saying, you can't get this money to everybody. You gotta be very careful on who you get which black churches you get this money to. We should be focused on, in my opinion, the money and the resources and the tangibles need to be focused primarily on black business owners, because these are the guys that's going to employ blacks in the communities, so that we can enact a proper group economics within our community, so that the communities can grow, similarly to how white communities grew when they separated from large cities across large urban environments. If that's confusing to you, like what I'm trying to say is, especially in Chicago, but when there was a time where a lot of where large cities were built, and those cities were highly diverse, like people from all over was just congested in these major cities. And the racism back then was just so profound, so ingrained into American culture, that it was repulsive for a white person to just see a black person in their community, right? And whether that was primarily and exclusively emotional, if that was exclusively an emotional response, it still held tangible and economic and resource centered ramifications. Does that make sense? This is what I mean by that. When you practice group economics in the community grows, and everybody in the community benefits from the community, right? So if a small city keeps the economy growing by everybody spending within that community, within that city or whatever, over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, and the money keeps being extracted from other communities into these major cities, so the money keeps bouncing around in the communities over and over and over again. The money and the abundance of resources grows and grows and grows. Everything about the community will grow when money is poured into the community, and it doesn't leave until every dollar, every cent is being used for its intended purpose, and that's growing for the growth or development of communities or cities or towns or townships, what have you. But so let's take it back again. Let's take it back a step again. That would have been a perfect world if had the whites never left the big cities out due to racism. They would have stayed in these cities, and they would have grew. And Chicago would be a much more it'll be in a much better state than it is now. I mean, downtown Chicago seems to be doing well. I would imagine. But had what I'm about to explain to you hadn't come to fruition, it would be much more things would be much more better. It just flat out would be. Anyway, so what ended up happening was these white people were so repulsed by the diversity that they moved out of these towns, right? They created highways that literally shot through black communities they shot through established and well-off black communities, and to create these suburbs outside of the city. And these suburbs were white dominant, completely and utterly white dominated. And you can ask any Chicagoan. Chicago is one of the most segregated. Chicago is one of the most, well, not just Chicago, but Chicagoland, like the surrounding counties of Chicago are heavily segregated. So again, they shot these highways through these black townships and all over, right? And created these white dominated suburbs. And what happened was these white suburbs were already being cultivated by the whites. They were being built by the rich whites that lived in these communities, right? So these wealthy whites, they created businesses, they created well, it wasn't even just. No, I'm sorry. It wasn't even just the wealthies, because like there was mom and pop shops all over the place, right? So they were actually. I do believe they were given. There was government incentive to for business growth. Within these alternative communities, right? So like I said, so these mom and pops grew. They grew and grew and grew. They became corporations and business. And McDonald's came in. Everybody started building business in these smaller communities, and they started garnering money from visitors from other countries. So the economics was being directed to these suburbs, and then like as the businesses did well, as the business continued to do well within these communities, because the people within the communities were only buying within those communities, the money bounced over and over and over and over again within the community. So they grew and grew and grew and became well established suburbs. Right, that's where you got. If you're from Chicago, that's how they got your Orland Parks. That's where you got your Tinley Parks. A lot of West Chicago, the white suburban West Chicago, like Elgin. I mean, then like the northern parts like Elgin, Elmhurst, all that other stuff, all of that stuff. Then airports is being built. O'Hare Airport, Midway, all of that stuff. All of that stuff started because whites separated from the big city of Chicago and practiced white group economics to the umpteenth degree. You know what I mean? So and that's pretty much how suburbs was pretty much crafted. Black churches. Okay, I almost forgot why I even started talking about all this stuff. But yeah, so that's how communities were built. Like it didn't like because all this started from when we was talking about the churches, the black church. He was going to give money to the churches, and I say we need to give the money to these businesses because by that same token of how these communities were, how these suburbs were built. Outside of the city of Chicago, how they, just grew into the powerhouses of suburbs that they are today. It started by investing into the businesses, and this platinum plan, it seems cool, right? And he is obviously of course he's putting giving some love to businesses. It's right here. I mean, I'm not saying this. Come on now. I'm just saying. I think the money would have been better allocated had we just given less work, less help for these churches, and even more resources towards the business, because the business is what's gonna grow these communities. I mean, we got, like I said, blacks, like not just blacks obviously, but so many people have like such a huge reliance on big corporations like Walmart, big corporations like McDonald's, and all these other guys. And yes, they do pay their taxes. Yeah, they do contribute to the city and stuff like that, and to the town. However, the economics, the money will run better. The money will benefit. I'm sorry, the resource will benefit the community better if the only restaurant you can go to in the town is a mom and pop shop, because the mom and pop shop, the money's not going to go anywhere. The community itself is going to feed that mom and pop shop, and the mom and pop shop is going to essentially literally feed that community, feed the community back. All right. What a digression. I apologize, but that's gonna be good for the content. But yeah, man. So yeah, if they want to do that, they're gonna do that. Otherwise, bring better and tailored healthcare to addressing historic disparities. Bring better and tailored healthcare to address historic disparities. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like he's talking about including what black women are going through at childbirth. That's what it sounds like to me, and I think that's valuable. But so I don't know. Like, I just think like this stuff should have been advertised better. Maybe he didn't advertise it because maybe he didn't think people. He thought people would have hated this type of stuff. That maybe that was the problem. But yeah, if black women if this information got out how it should have gotten out, black women wouldn't have voted over 90% Joe Biden if they knew they were being directly included into this platinum plan. All right. Immigration policy that protects American jobs. Oh, immigration policy that protects American jobs. Oh man, immigration policy that protects government jobs. I'm afraid to even talk about this one, man. Remember what I said about racism? Remember what Dr. Claud Anderson said about racism? This is part of that. When you the idea of racism was adopted. It wasn't adopted. How do I? It was the idea around racism was changed. How do I want to say this? We're gonna say it. Okay. We're gonna just. I'm gonna just bear with me, right? Bear with me here. Assuming that Dr. Claud Anderson is right regarding the history of racism, assuming that to be correct, we can. It's safe to assume that the Democrats no, we're not going to say Democrats. We're going to say liberals took the idea of racism and changed it into something different. Racism by Dr. Claud Anderson's interpretation is a literal foot race. It's a horse race, right? It's a race where groups of people are essentially fighting for land, resources, and opportunities. And I'm gonna just put it out there, man. Immigration, if you're not tough on immigration policy, that can spell trouble for Black Americans. Here's how. If this nation was primarily imagine this crazy, bizarre world where America was only inhabited by whites and blacks. And Mexico was flourishing. Mexico was flourishing to the point where there was no need for immigration. That meant like Mexico was essentially like another Canada. Like that's how good they were doing. Government, like the government, politics, the economics, everything in Mexico was going just as good as it was in Canada. It was going just as well as it is in Canada. Free healthcare or something like that, right? And for the most, so that, like I said, that would allow for a reality where America wasn't getting a lot of illegal immigration from Mexico. What reality that would have made was the lower income communities, or not lower income communities, the Black communities would have been primarily ran and operated by Black Americans. I believe that America still would have been about as racially divided as it is today. It's just that the communities that where Black people are in, those communities would have been not just dominated population wise by Blacks, but the municipalities, the local business, labor, all of that stuff would have just been black focused. And the wealth disparities that we see today would have been and it would have been a completely different situation. Arguably, Blacks would have been in control of just as much wealth as they are in population. So I don't know what the numbers would have been looking like population wise during this time, but I'll guarantee you one thing: if Blacks were in control of like the policing and business and economics and all of that stuff within their communities, we definitely be high. We definitely have a higher population size than 14%. Our numbers are being attacked by our men by way of gun violence and by our women via abortion. That's just the facts, right? And had we have had a situation where our economic strength was being completely and utterly controlled by primarily Black Americans, there would be significantly less gun violence in our communities, and there'll be significantly less abortions within our communities. We like what one thing that Ye is trying to what thing that Ye has been trying to instill, what he's been talking about was giving women alternatives to abortion. Say, hey, don't kill your kid, right? Don't kill your baby. Let's just just turn them over to this adoption agency. Turn them over to this orphanage. Turn them over to these this other type of program that can give this child a chance to live, so that when maybe someday later, when you're more financially ready, or when you're in a better headspace to come visit your child, or whatever you want to do, take them back in if need be. You will feel much better as a person without that guilt on your shoulder that you killed somebody that you could have seen grow into a fully functioning adult. You know, just putting it out there. I do believe, like, I as far as abortion rights and all that stuff, and the Roe v. Wade and all that stuff, I'm staying out of it. But I do believe in the Bible, and I do believe, and I do understand the argument of pro-choice. I mean I mean to say pro-life, but I do understand people are in really, really bad situations economically. It just is what it is. But I just see the benefit of keeping lives alive. I do understand I do understand the ramifications for that, and I do understand the pros of that also. So you know what I mean? So anyway, so yeah, gun violence. I mean, we don't have to talk about gun violence. That's obviously bad. But it'll be significantly less gun violence, and it'll be significantly less abortion. So we will definitely have a much higher population stats than just 14%. Anyway, where did I even leave off at on this? I'll be going crazy, man. Financial literacy. Yeah, okay. Immigration policy. Oh boy. So yeah, like I said, had we just, like I said, in this bizarre world where every country, or at least on the Western Hemisphere, was doing financially okay to the point where Mexicans can stay Mexican, right? Canadians can stay Canadian, and all of that stuff, and Americans can stay Americans. The numbers will be drastically different, and crime and murder and all that stuff within our community will be just completely different. Anyway, so that's just, and that's like the perfect world, in other words, right? That's the perfect world where if everybody stayed in their own place and handled their own problems, the perfect world will be crafted. And but the perfect world can't exist. So what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to find a gray area between the perfect world and reality. And that gray area is immigration policy, right? So we're not going to be able to fight. We're not going to be able to form a reality where there's just absolutely no need for I'm sorry. How do I explain this? In reality, in our current reality, we're always going to have immigration. There's always going to be immigration when we're living in reality. But what we can do is kind of fend off the possibility of overpopulation by way of actually enforcing some strict immigration policy. You know what I mean? Like, immigration is okay, and like this nation was founded on immigration, true. But you have to take note. You have to be aware of like the benefits of keeping the borders secure. You know what I mean? It can overpopulation can have drastic ramifications on local economics, and the reason why it especially affects Black Americans is because we're the ones that have a Black business ownership problem in America. right? Because we're the primary ones. We're the primary communities that have all types of people making money in our communities and extracting that money out of their communities into their own communities, or into their own cultures rather. And that's part of the reason why we just can't that is a primary reason why we can't practice group economics as effectively as those white suburbs, you know. So try to keep all this stuff in perspective. That was a tough one, man. So like I said, man, please don't hate me about my feelings towards immigration policy. I think I do believe it's necessary, but I also believe that we need to understand that humans are humans. You know what I mean? It's a very, very difficult very difficult conversation, and it requires a lot of nuance and a lot of empathy to find a way that it benefits the vast majority, because not everybody's going to be pleased. This is what it is, especially in a capitalistic society. Okay, moving on. Advanced home ownership opportunities and enhanced financial literacy in the Black community. The housing market in America is absolute crap. It is absolute and utter crap. I don't have to explain it. Everybody knows this. Advanced home ownership opportunities and enhanced financial literacy in the Black community. Not the colored or the minority community. No, none of that. Like specifically the Black community. Dude, if you don't know, I'm not gonna go through all of that. I'm not gonna do this. No, I'm not gonna do that. If you don't know the importance of home ownership and land ownership in America, if you don't understand that concept, then you need to go to YouTube and find somebody that specializes in real estate and its opportunities real estate can influence on in your pockets. Real estate is big money in America. And if you don't understand how important real estate is for Americans or in a capitalistic society, then you need to educate yourself, because I'm not going to do it. not in this live stream. Advanced home ownership, yeah. So the next one here is onshoring manufacturing to advance jobs and develop opportunities for Black-owned businesses. He's putting a lot of emphasis on Black business, because Donald Trump understands that the best way to grow communities is through his businesses. So, well, I mean, this is okay. Well, what it is, what it is. And then we got a lot of stuff. We're gonna just kind of speed past this because we already well past 2 hours. Black economic empowerment and access to capital. Jobs. Reach even greater level of historic employment and wage growth of the Black community set in 2019, and that anyone looking for a job gets one. Seeking infrastructure and funding that will lead to widespread growth in the annual $500 billion federal contracting opportunities. Grow minority-owned businesses with additional tax cuts and stimulate the hiring and investment. Grow minority-owned businesses. And this is that thing that Dr. Claud Anderson was emphasizing. When we use words like minority, we're adding extra people into something that's supposed to be tailored to Black people. And he this is probably why Ye was trying to reach out to Trump. He was trying to get him to understand that, hey, he was trying to get him to understand that, hey, when you use words like minority, when you use words like colored folks or all these other weird words, you're taking money out of the people that you're trying to shed the spotlight on, you know. So we gotta put that in perspective here. No offense to anybody else. Please, no offense. I'm just being as objective as I possibly can. Anybody, and hey, I want to put this out there also. Anybody that has any type of rebuttal against anything I'm saying, anybody that want to accuse me of racism and all that, hey, sound it off. Let me know, and we can even have a conversation if you so chose to. But everything that I'm saying, everything I'm saying here is not coming from a person that's advocating for Black Americans. My logic and my reasoning is literally rooted in empathy and in emotional, or not emotional, but intellectual, from an intellectual and an honest standpoint. That's what I'm trying to. So, like I said, if you can root yourself in empathy and intellectual honesty, address this conversation from those merits. Don't address this as, oh, you're just doing this because you're Black. That's a cop out. All right, I'm not stupid. You're not stupid. Don't try to derail the conversation and get other people to think I'm a racist, right? Because I'm saying this, I'm speaking these things, and I'm Black. We got to cut out this intellectual dishonesty. Where did I leave off on? Grow minority business, encourage onshoring and development and domestic manufacturing. What the hell? Are you kidding me? Encourage onshoring and development of domestic manufacturing to increase supply chain business development and employment. This dude Donald knows. He knows business, man. He does know it. Examine barriers and employment, including fees, occupational licensing, and arrest records, inaccuracy, and impingement. Oh man, I don't have to go through that, man. Increase activity and opportunity zones, including benefits for local hires. Invest almost $20 billion towards broadband and internet access to create jobs opportunities, improve classroom connectivity, and the ability to utilize telehealth services. He's addressing academics. Fueling access and capital for Black-owned businesses. Increase opportunities for small business, leading to technical assistance through community development and financial institution in order to grow business and create generational wealth opportunities for over $400 billion in lending. It looked like a platinum plan to me. Examine alternative ways to build credit, including rent, utilities, and phone bills. He's helping Black people build credit. Oh man, this is crazy, bro. The only man, I'm gonna say this now because I'm gonna forget to say it later. The only rebuttal I can kind of muster up to fight against this is this wasn't advertised properly because he knew he would have lost voters if he were actually going to instill all out of this stuff. This looks like the plan that all Black politicians need to instill in order to garnish that in order to gather the attention of Black Americans across the United States. This is the plan. This is like the blueprint for Black success in America. This is what Black politicians need to start bringing back and start instilling in order to in hopes of fixing Black America. All right. Oh boy. Jeez, there's so much to go through it because I have so much to say, man. Yeah, I just have so much to say regarding this. We're gonna get through this. This is gonna have to be a 3-hour stream if need be. Fueling. Let me see. Yeah. So the next bullet point here: fueling access to capital for Black-owned businesses. Increase opportunities for small business lending and technical assistance through community development and financial institutions in order to grow a business and create generational wealth for over 4 billion lending. I said that already. Examine alternative ways to build credit. All right. Make the Minority Business Development Agency permanent. Appoint its leader to assistant secretary and commerce level. Create a sub office of African American affairs and engage with private sector advisors to ensure real world plans and solutions. Oh boy. All right. I don't know, man. This it's hard to read this and assume this man was a racist. It's hard to draw that connection, man. I'm just saying, like, this is the stuff that builds wealth and builds America to be great. I mean, Black Americans to be great. That's how I'm looking at it. He did whatever. Anybody want to say something? I'm all ears, man. But let me get through this real quick. Increase the number of Black-owned contracting businesses, financial services entities, and private equity investment funds through regulatory reform, and up to $40 billion in government funding alongside traditional private investment. Advanced lending relationships with financial institutions, particularly those businesses who weren't able to participate in PPP. Oh man, Black folks got they folks did got they PPP loans even though they didn't participate in it. Hey, well, let's move on. Host senior executives from major financial institutions on a quarterly basis and advance new and equitable lending programs for Black communities. More education opportunities. Education African American can choose. Federal, state, and local community partnerships to those failing schools that replace with, oh boy, man, I've heard so many people talk about schools being shut down across Black communities. To replace with full school choice and education opportunity that put American parents back in control over their children's futures. Increase child care tax credits and provide greater access to quality preschool. It's crazy, man. Education. This is. Oh, I'm so sorry. I did not scroll down on this side. Here we go. There we go. Please pause and then read as you see fit. Because I literally have another thing. I have another window up in front of my screen, so I'll have to turn my neck. Apologies. But yeah. Better and cheaper healthcare, affordable care you can trust, reduce costs, and improve access to quality healthcare through HRSA. Deliver real price transparency so you can know the cost before care is received. Opportunity to be charged of your own healthcare and choose your own doctor, eliminating long-standing health care disparities. Investments into the causes and cures of kidney disease, high blood pressure disease, diabetes, sickle cell disease, maternal mortality, and other diseases that disproportionately affect Black American populations. Boy, oh boy. Increase access to telemedicine and innovate technologies to empower patients with flexibility and tools for better health. Public-private partnership to develop healthcare facilities in low-income areas. Defend religious freedom, exemptions to respect religious believers, and always protect life. Oh boy. I know that can directly how how do I approach this? If you didn't even know, I'll make the statement now. I subscribe to Black Hebrew, or Hebrew Israelite, Black. I mean, oh man, I'm kind of drained right now. I'm not gonna lie, it's just been so much right now. If you didn't know by now, I'll state it here, as clear and concise as I can. I Marcus, aka Higher Thinking, subscribe to Hebrew Israelite beliefs. I believe in the Bible. I believe the Bible to be history. I believe it to be a direct reflection of Black history, especially. And this here, defend religious freedom exemptions, to respect religious believers and always protect life. That's going to benefit my people. That's going to benefit the people that I subscribe to. The people that I look to towards religious or spiritual understanding. Anyway, safety and justice continue to make historic improvements to the criminal justice system through common sense actions like the First Step Act, including increased use of drug rehabilitation versus drug incarceration. Yeah, that's something that's big. That's big among our communities, and it's something that can be help that can help Black Americans across the world. Anyway, Americans, not just the Black Americans, is what I'm trying to say. Announce a national clemency program to unite families and invest in human potential, focusing on wrongful prosecution and rehabilitation. Restore safety in Americans' great cities by working with police departments, community leaders, and mental health professionals to install the most responsive and professional and accountable models of policing, including diversity training and accreditation standards. If I said that wrong, please excuse me. Advance second chance hiring and get rehabilitated citizens with a criminal record back on the job. Okay. Prosperous Black communities. Champion federal policy reform to advance home ownership initiatives. Partner with local leaders and Black communities to ensure maximum federal support for neighborhood revitalization. Make Juneteenth a national holiday. Oh, God. Make Juneteenth a national holiday. This is where my man takes me with that one. Make Juneteenth a national holiday. What this tells me is Joe Biden was the one that made that a national holiday, right? He got that going. Thanks, Joe Biden. Appreciate you. What that tells me is, I'd argue that nobody was even thinking about making Juneteenth a national holiday before. Obviously people got in Donald Trump's ear to get all this stuff together. This is like the totality of his understanding of Black Americans and what they need in order to be great in America, right? And it is to my understanding that if Joe Biden himself didn't read this platinum plan, his team did. And they picked out some things that they believe were viable in America that would have made Black people happy and would have made the rest of Americans happy. Right? So my problem is they saw all of this other stuff. They saw this entire platinum plan, and they cherry picked the stuff that they thought that would have been They cherry picked the stuff that they were willing to compromise on. Okay, we can give them a holiday. Why not? But all this other stuff, $500 billion for black people? I don't know about that. That's what I got a problem with. I'm not. They cherry picked something. They cherry picked the small stuff instead of instilling and addressing the stuff, the numerous ideas that would have brought black economic power into a whole new game, a whole new ballpark. Oh boy. Anyway, prosperous black communities. Last bullet point. Champion federal policy reforms to advance home ownership initiatives. Partner with local leaders in the black communities to ensure maximum federal support for neighborhood revitalization. What I just said earlier about working with the grassroots. Oh my goodness. I thought I had a good idea of you. I thought I was smart by saying the celebrities and the people with the very popular black Americans, right? I was saying they use their platforms to bring on the people working on the grassroots, the leaders amongst the grassroots, right? You know what I'm trying to say. And bring attention to the problems so that people can rally behind them, right? And bring initiative towards not just initiative, but bring funding to these people so that actions can be instilled and exacted so that change can happen, so that solutions can be actuated, can be found, so lives can be changed, right? So not just lives can be changed, but black violence can go down, black abortion can go down, right? This dude crafted this platinum plan to push past this whole step of social awareness and just go straight to the grassroots. He said, no, we're not. He's doing exactly what I say Republicans need to start doing. Stop being ignorant to black struggles, right? And address black struggles directly, and stop bringing on these BS talking points, these BS bad faith arguments to divert attention away from what we're going through. It's like by you doing that, by you being willfully ignorant, you're essentially watching us deteriorate as a society. By you just saying, I mean, I've heard this before. Oh man, no, it's not gun violence amongst black Americans or black on black crime isn't a matter of poverty. It's not a thing of it's not a matter of what's what I'm trying to say here. It's not, because it's so freaking stupid. I can't even put my mind in a let me try to get through this first. Yeah, black on black crime is not a matter of poverty and a lack of opportunities, right? It's people making bad decisions, and that's just it's just not true, right? When you choose a more honest approach, you will realize that these communities are in need of assistance. It's in need of stimulation, you know, and that's something we've been trying to reach out to these people to get them to understand over generations. Okay, so this is Donald Trump. This is what happens when you forego all of the nonsense narrative that we see Candace Owens, that we see Larry Elder, Ron DeSantis, all of these guys, all of these people. This is what happens when you have honest conversations with the people on the grassroots, and you get legislation, you get bills passed, you get solutions that's gonna directly you get solutions that's gonna directly attack exactly what I'm sorry, not attack, but you get solutions that's gonna directly impact Americans. I mean, the people that are in need the most. Let's get through this, man. Oh yeah, make Juneteenth a national holiday. Oh boy, I know I don't. No way. No way. I know I don't see what I think I see right here. How do I do this? There it is. I know I don't see what I think. Prosecute the Ku Klux. What? Prosecute the K's and Antifa. Oh, okay. He had to throw Antifa in there too. Hold on. I think y'all can't see this y'all can't see it yet because my screen, my thing is in the way. Let me just see if I can. Darn, I wish I can. If I can, hold on, give me a second, man. I'm gonna have to edit this out. Edit this properly. There we go. Just scroll here. He had to throw Antifa in there. Baby steps, all right? Baby steps. We got a cower back somewhere. This dude, Antifa. Yeah, prosecute the K's and Antifa as terrorist organizations and make lynching a national hate crime. How come Joe Biden didn't do this? How come Kamala Harris ain't talking about this? How come Bill Clinton, any of these black governors or these Democratic governors across America, how come nobody is talking about this or has enacted this? Prosecute the Klan as a terrorist organization and make lynching a national hate crime? Lynching is not a national hate crime yet? Hello? And this was in the Blackman plan. Signed and dotted and the T's crossed by Donald Trump himself. Okay. All right. I can't believe that one. That one was that one was OD. All right, okay. Fewer black farmers and access to healthy foods to address food disparities. Favorable trade deals to bring back manufacturing jobs and help black contractors, farmers, investors, and consumers. Man, come on, man. I don't have to explain this stuff, dude. Defend religious liberty and African American churches that lift and conscious of our that uplift. Okay. You know, I'm just so my brain is still blown from the freaking the K's. The K's bullet point. All right. Defend religious liberty and African American churches that lift the conscience of our nation. Gotcha. Collaborate with cities and countries to address mental illness and substance abuse. Enough said. We already heading towards 3 hours. I'm gonna get to my chats in a second, but I'm definitely gonna ready to close this one out. I definitely want to get to 2 more Claud Anderson videos, but we're gonna just do that next week. And we're definitely gonna open up with the Donald Trump video that I was gonna bring up here. Trump and black votes, and this was 3 years ago. So I believe this was before the platinum plan. I believe it was. I could be wrong. I apologize if I'm wrong. But safe to say, I ain't gonna say it's safe to say anything right now. There's a possibility, right? There's a possibility that Dr. Claud Anderson, that Donald Trump had a conversation with Claud Anderson by one way or another, or even if it had been word of mouth. Maybe he didn't have a direct conversation with Claud Anderson, but looking at this platinum plan, bro, this was crafted by somebody that had a conversation with somebody that had very good understanding of economics. Arguably, these people that he had conversations with read these Powernomic books, to be honest with you. But there's other black economic books that out there and stuff like that do benefit black Americans and stuff like that. Comparatively, I want to cover this too one day, very soon actually, because I do know Kamala Harris actually sat down with young black men, ages ranging from 18 to 35, regarding strategies on how to keep black men voting Democratic, right? I want to react to that. I want to watch that. I want to react to it live and give my spiel on it. Because if that conversation was rooted in solutions that actually can benefit black Americans or ADOS, then I'm open for it. I mean, I can't be like I got a lot of smoke for Democrats, but I got hella smoke for the Republicans also. Don't get me wrong, you know. So I will definitely listen to that with open ears and an open mind, and I can't be swayed. Absolutely, but the conversations need to be with black gentlemen who are learned. Like earlier in the video, Dr. Claud Anderson mentions that the people that the government, or not government, but the people that politicians will use to speak for black folks, like the three things that he mentioned that's gonna be necessary for to speak for black Americans. That idea needs to be rooted in into the people that Kamala Harris and and any other Democrat. How am I going to try and explain this? Those fundamental aspects that he mentioned which was it? I believe it was Empower Black America. It was this one right here. It was one of the two. I'll have to go back. When I make the condensed version of this live stream, I'll edit in which video it was. Anyway, for whomever the Democrats choose to speak to that represents black Americans, those gentlemen, those people that they're trying to reach out to speak for black Americans need to be rooted in those three things. Right, they need to have a good understanding of politics. They need a good understanding of economics. They need to be rooted in their blackness. You know what I mean? They need to have some they need to have empathy and sympathy for blacks in America. Anyway, I'm not gonna. And in the event that I watch this stream and she's speaking to black Americans that have no understanding, that are not learned, right? Because I do know some of these guys are just like are pretty young, you know, not even 30, you know. They probably they got other stuff going on other than like video games and stuff like that. They have other distractions going on other than complete understanding and introspectively of how bad the conditions are for black Americans. that person, that intelligent person, these need to be very intelligent people that need to have these conversations with Kamala Harris. You know, we don't need any grifting. We need to be completely through with grifting. Anyway, so I'll react to that. Hope maybe next week. We'll probably get through these last two videos with Claud Anderson next week. Try to find a video regarding that. Try to find that Kamala Harris video where she's speaking with Black Americans, and we might go into the Thomas Sowell rebuttal against reparations. Okay, we got some chats here. Lynching, okay. Lynching is already a federal crime. Okay, that's good, Dan. It's obviously a federal crime. It's fucking. Oh, okay. But as a reason or as a solution to how I word this, as a okay, yeah. Well, so they got rid of lynching. I would like to assume that it's not just a federal crime as far as like a community answer to a problem or a problematic person. You know what I'm trying to say. Like if somebody does a crime, community can't collectively grab this person and hang him at the gallows, right? Understandable, but like where's my mouse at? Here it is. Oh, okay. There's my mouse. Where was that? Make lynching a national hate crime. Yeah, well, it's a federal crime, but here he says he wants to make it a national hate crime. I don't know. I guess it would depend on the difference between a national hate crime and a federal crime. So I mean, that's good. I mean, which like Takrande, I'm sorry if I said that wrong. If you type your name in the chat and pronounce it for me, or just type it how it's pronounced, then I'll gladly. Okay, thank you. Yeah. So like I said, maybe I could just look up the difference between a federal crime and a national hate crime. I'll have that ready next week. So you also know that when it was enacted, Emmett Till. 55, the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act, which makes lynching a federal hate crime. Oh, a federal hate crime. Okay. I can rock with that. All right, thanks for the correction, there, my brother. Yeah, I'm Dave gonna look into that off stream now, like right after this. But I kind of we passed 3 hours now. I'm definitely past my. I'm kind of past my stream time right now. But anyway, I'm finna close this out, man. It's been a blast this week. Definitely learned a whole lot. Definitely got a lot of people watching too. A whole fab. That's super dope. Yeah, man. It's been a blast, man. And thanks for everybody that come through. Have fun with me here and learn more about the platinum plan, especially. I remember going through it a long time ago, and I don't know, maybe I was just stupid like 2 years ago. I don't know. but I don't know. I like it, man. I like it. Anyway, I told y'all what I'm gonna be doing next week. For anybody that don't know already, the streaming, my streaming schedule is Sundays. Usually, the target is noon, 12 o'clock Central Time. That's the target time. That's the target at least. But I'll stream Sundays, and most of my work is done on YouTube. Most of my content is uploaded on YouTube, but Tuesday I'll upload a short. Wednesday I upload a full video. Wednesday I'll upload a short. Friday I'll upload a short. Saturday will be for some Friday. Saturday. It's undisclosed, but something will be happening Saturday in the future. Y'all will be and it's gonna be sooner than expected also. So be on the lookout for Saturdays from my platform. And Sundays again. I stream on Sundays. Hey, appreciate everybody for sliding on me, man. It's been extremely fun, man. And I'll catch you on the flip side. Appreciate it, teacher.
Come to TurboTax and don't do your taxes. Meet with an expert who will do them for you so you can do not taxes.